to the latest thread. Today, we're going to be talking about our favorites. We have a spinner wheel, we're going to spin it, and then we're going to talk about that topic. So we have 5 different topics, and we're going to spin the wheel and talk about what our favorite thing is there.
I'm going to bring up the little spinner wheel.
Isn't there a song that said, "Yo, DJ, spin that wheel"?
Wait, I'm going to spin the wheel. Ready? Are we ready?
All right, we're ready.
It's like Jeopardy music or something.
All right. So machine features is going to be our first topic of favorites. And on my Gamel machine, I have a 26-inch Classic Plus Gamel quilting machine. And one of my favorite features about it is actually the stitch regulator, because I was always nervous when I was first starting that my stitches wouldn't look good because they wouldn't always be the same length and all, exactly the same. And the stitch regulator does a fantastic job of making sure that your stitches all look great all the time. Karen, you want to go next?
Me, Karen, or Karen Sievert, Karen?
Either one.
Y'all know what my favorite feature is. My favorite feature is on the Vision 2, and it's called My Stitch Select. So it gives you the ability to program whatever 2 things you want to use the most, and you program it to a button, and when you push that button, it switches between those 2 features on the fly. You don't have to stop. It just switches right between them. Click it again, it switches back. So if you haven't tried that feature, it's really cool. Karen Sievert.
I like now I'm going to have a senior moment, but I like the feature where you can go between manual and stitch regulation, where it automatically does that for you. You don't have to actually think about it. So the computer will actually change it from stitch regulation to constant mode, depending on how fast or slow you're moving the machine. So it's going to gives you, coast regulate. It gives you the best of both worlds. And I just really dig that. Jody?
I think my favorite, it's kind of probably a dumb one, but I love the timer, because you can, if you quilt for other people, then you start, at times you get, like, I like to time out how long did one pass of this take. And then I kind of know how long I can have my time, and see how much I made,
just to see a lot.
Yeah, that, and even like a custom, like, okay, first I'm going to ditch this entire quilt. How much time am I actually spending? And it always feels like, you get done and I'm like, man, I feel like it took like an entire day. And I look and it's like an hour.
48 minutes.
But yeah, that's probably my favorite.
I think that's because it doesn't count all the time. I think half the time you're stitching and the other half the time you're getting a tool, rolling, smoothing, planning, marking. Like, it's like you're spending more time doing that than you are the actual stitching, right?
Yeah.
I agree with Karen Sievert. The coast regulate is my favorite feature on my Vision. Love it.
And I was actually gonna say exactly what Jody said, because to me, if you're trying out if you're trying out an edge to edge, and if you quilt for others and trying to figure out, because the more intricate, the longer obviously the row will take. So it's nice to know so you can map it out. So that would have been my first choice, even though, like Jody said, it kind of seems silly with all the exciting functions and features. But I also do like that you can change up how your rocking switches. You can change up where you want your start and stop to be, and all those other things, because depending on what you work on, that can make a difference as well. So I do like that also.
Hey, all those are great features on our machines. Let's take on the next topic.
All right. I just like spinning the wheel. Okay. Storage. Oh,
Hmm.
oh, storage. Yeah.
Okay,
was a bad
these
one
are
for
going to
me.
be favorite methods of storing any of the things. There are so many things with long arm quilting that you have. You got rulers, you got stencils, you got marking tools. I mean, there's just so many different things that you're storing. So these are just going to be our favorite methods of storing different things. My favorite, I will say, for stencils, I do a really quick and easy storage of stencils. They are behind the door of my quilting room, and I have like 3 nails nailed into the wall. And so the smaller stencils are on the top one, the medium stencils are in the middle one, and the bigger stencils are on the bottom one. And then I can flip through them real easily and get out the one I need for the quilt I'm working on. How about you, Jody?
I think probably my favorite is I found some drawers. Like I take the batting, that rod across underneath there off, because like my room is small, so I need all the space I can get. I can put the batting away somewhere in a closet. So I found some little drawer units at IKEA that fit under there, and all my thread can be, and a lot of miscellaneous, stuff that we have. But I don't like to see all that stuff. Like I don't want to see all the thread. I just I used to like it hanging or whatever, but now I just need it to be
Neat.
not. Yes. That's probably one of my favorites.
I'm opposite. I want to see all my thread, and that's my favorite because I'm not real good at storage. So
What?
everything is stored. It's just there. No, Joe built me shelves for my threads. So they're all like, because like I like Madeira and I like, glide. So they're all different heights. So I have all these different thread heights that they fit on the shelves. Because I just want to look up and see that's the pink I need or that's the green I need. So yeah. My thread shelves. That's it.
And we were also talking about marking tools. I use some, storage containers that are like cup shaped,
Mhm.
like cups. And I put all my, let's say, all the water soluble, they can be different brands, but they're all blue. So they all go into one, including the blue chalk markers, like the sew line markers. So everything is, and then the air arrays are in a different cup and so forth. So when I know what I want to use, I just go to that cup rather than them all being mixed up in one drawer.
Sharon, I can see I can see Sharon's method of storing.
Well, that's fabric. That's a whole other problem. But I think probably my favorite thing, like in my long arm room for like utility, is a little rolly cart that I bought at the craft store, and it is as high as maybe counter height, so it's a good height to when you're standing just to turn. It's got, I think, 8 little drawers, are probably about the size of a sheet of paper, and maybe about, I don't know, 4 inches high. So in one drawer, I'll put all my marking stuff, and then another drawer, I'll put, like pounds or like miscellaneous, and like a little drawer for every little space. Then I put my coffee on top, and I can move it around. So it's really nice when you're doing custom work to just kind of like, okay, now I'm working over here, and maybe I'm going to sit on my drafting chair for a little while, and I'll have my little station. As long as you remember to that, if you do have a coffee on there, not to
Yeah.
turn around too fast and knock it off.
No coffee in my
having the
studio.
rolling cart, like, it comes with me. I like that. But otherwise, I'm horrible at storage. It's just like things get crammed in, and you don't want to see what's behind the pile that looks nice. Behind that is all stuff that's crammed in there.
I know that feeling.
That's
So
pretty normal.
I'm the opposite of Jody. I had somebody come in and put up pegboard for me, and I have all my threads in color order, and I have like long pegs for the cones and short pegs for the bobbins. I also have my rulers hanging. If they have a hole drilled in them, I have those hanging on there. All of my markers that I haven't taken out of the packaging are hanging on there. Extra needles for burying threads, all of that kind of stuff is just hanging on that pegboard. So it's really easy for me to remember where I have something and to find it quickly so that I can not waste a lot of time looking for it.
Very cool.
Okay. Well, those are some great things to know about storage. So now we can move on to another topic. We're going to spin that wheel again.
Okay.
Go, Karen.
All righty. Style of quilting.
This should be a good one.
Well, I'll go because I'm already talking. I love crazy, crazy dense heirloom quilting. Is probably not the best thing for your body, but you get sore back. But that's where it's my happy place. You know.
I think I get it, but that's what kind of like a comfort zone for me is like the really dense heirloom style quilting. So because it's like you kind of like intuitively know the things that belong in those spaces, right? So that to me it's like I love that because it feels comfortable, but I also love the challenge of being out of my comfort zone and trying to do something a little bit more modern and really different. And so I enjoy that too because then I have the growth, but sometimes combining those two elements and thinking, okay, something that is kind of maybe a modern quilt to put something traditional on it, or a traditional quilt to put something modern on it, or just combining the two styles together to see what you can come up with something a little bit more kind of eclectic looking. So I have a hard time choosing because it's all the whole creative process, whether you're good at it or not, is good for you, right? So I enjoy it all.
For me, it depends a lot of times what mood I'm in. Because, well, it does. Because
Ava, you're moody.
no, I didn't say that, but well, of
Karen
course,
did.
yeah, I know. And I'm trying to be really nice here. No, but seriously, it does depend on my mood because when I'm not feeling it, then an edge to edge, because then I don't have to think. But then I also agree, especially with what Sharon said, because I do love the dense custom quilting with feathers and fill, you know, um, because I feel comfortable doing it. I enjoy it. I enjoy the end result, the look of it. So that's when I put, headphones on, listen to a good book, and I'm in the zone, but it really does depend. I don't always want to do that every day. There's other days, which I'm sure Jody will talk about, where I really just love ruler work. I need that precision that day. It truly depends. And I bet if I'm, honest with myself, if I follow that kind of, if I can, based on my schedule, then I enjoy quilting for others a lot more, because then it doesn't seem like work. If I have to do something that I am not feeling, not so fun. So the favorite is not, I can't name a favorite because it changes.
Jody?
I mean, I like to do the super, intricate custom stuff, but the patience level.
It's dwindling.
I mean, I like ruler work. I can do that all day. It's the only time I actually do have patience, but I have a tendency to see what that first pass looks like. You envision it, you do it, and then I'm like, oh, it's awesome. But I really don't want to do the rest. I know what it's look like. So honestly, if I were doing quilts for people still, it's edge to edge because that's quick. It doesn't take any, not that it doesn't take thought, but it's just you just do it and it's faster and it's, I don't know.
It is fast. I did have done some that I really love, is that combining that kind of edge to edge and adding a little border. So maybe you just do the edge to edge on the very middle, and then you can add a custom border around the outside in that border. And I love to do that because I think it adds just a little bit more special than just doing edge to edge. So that's my favorite.
Mm.
My favorite is I'm going to say whole cloth quilts. It's been I've been doing this for a long time, and it just seems like a journey. And as I've done more and more quilts, what I've realized when I turn the quilt over is it looks like a whole cloth quilt. So that made me start thinking about actually doing a whole cloth quilt. So I love to design whole cloth quilts, but like Karen and Sharon and all of you, I also like doing the really intricate work. And I can start that first pass too, Jody, and say, oh my gosh, why did I do this? There's going to be 780 circles on here. That's where my love is at. I just love doing that.
And maybe it's worth mentioning too, because we're talking about, like looking at that first pass and being like, oh, it looks amazing. Personally, almost every single custom quilt I do, I look at the first couple passes and I feel like I hate it.
What?
Honestly, like I will second guess myself, and I thought maybe that was important to say because I know there are other people out there that do this, and they'll look at their own work and they'll go, I should have done this or I should have done that. And then if you just push through and finish it and you take it off and you like step back, it's like, oh, it does look good.
That's
Right?
why
So
I start with most color first. Because I like, if I start with the most color thread that I have to use first, like I have to get through all this and then I go to the next color, because this, if I just did one pass at a time, I think I would, like, every quilt would end on the second pass. I'd be like,
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. But like when you start to get some of those, areas filled in and things start to come together a bit, I think there's always a period where I'm second guessing and I feel like, what have I done? And I'm too far in to take it out
Yeah,
and start
we're
over
not ripping
again.
now. Yeah.
Right. So I'm just going to push through, and then I take it off and go, it's awesome. I love it. It's just such a
It
weird.
looks so much better when you take it off and you get that dimension, when it's not like taut on the table.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I know for myself, I would say, how come the bottom of my quilts always look so much better than the tops? And it's because by the time I've gotten to the bottom, I'm actually warmed up and know what I'm doing.
That's
And when
by the time I figure
I
out
was a
my,
little
my
bit more
travel
hesitant.
path. I'm on the
Yeah.
last section. I'm like, oh, now I know which way I should go and do this.
Right?
Yeah.
Then you figured out your path in the last row.
Yeah.
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to add to what Sharon was saying about the second guessing. And I can relate to that in that way because if you have a tendency to get a lot of quilts where you do a lot of the dense quilting, and now you get one that doesn't require all dense quilting, maybe their budget doesn't allow it, or, it just doesn't need it. I always second guess myself thinking, this is not enough. I need to add, I need to add. I have a real issue with it. And so, because you're used to quilting densely. So I literally force myself to take off the tension, let it hang there, walk away for an hour or 5, it doesn't matter. Just because if I don't, I start adding and now I'm committed and it didn't need it. That for me is where I second guess myself often.
All right.
Those are all good styles, good things to know about quilting. And I think we're ready to move on to a new topic.
All right. Are we doing them all, or are we just gonna pick like one more?
It's what yeah.
Well, we'll see. See how long the chat goes.
There you go. That's kind of was the plan, I think. Tie off method. Okay. For me, on this tie-off method, I'm going to say I don't bury my threads. I never really have. I take a few little tight locking stitches, and that is the end of that tie-off. I have had to take out stitches before, and trying to take out those tiny little tie-off stitches is really hard. So I'm pretty positive it's going to take a lot of years and a lot of wear on that quilt before those little tie-offs come out. So I don't bury my threads. Anybody else?
Nope.
I'm with you. No burying threads for me either.
Okay, I bury my threads.
Everybody's allowed to have their own favorite method, so that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I just
tried it.
I remember putting something into a competition, and I got they give you this feedback sheet, and I got hit for starts and stops. And so after that, I just keep a needle on a magnet on the sewing head. And so as soon as I finished that line of quilting, I bury the start, I bury the stop, and I'm done. So that's why I do it.
I tried it on one quilt, and after, I don't know if it's me changing my mind about starting and stopping, or I just am excessive at it, but it was like 38 tie-offs, and I only did this much quilting, and I'm like, nope, there's just thread everywhere. Nope. And I don't believe and I say this a lot, but people say you can't win ribbons if you don't bury your threads. You can.
Yeah.
Very well.
Yeah, you do your tie-offs like Karen Sievert said and everybody else, and then you choose your backing wisely. And you also choose if you're able to, choose where you start and stop wisely. I'm sure we've talked about it in the past at some point, that there's different ways to travel within our quilting. So you still most of the time have the opportunity to pick and choose your endpoint. So, but choosing your backing wisely, if you're entering in a competition, makes that process a lot easier too.
And I choose my spot that I'm going to do it to as
Right.
well. Like if you can hide it in a seam, right?
Yeah.
And as well as making sure, like say for example, it's that because you run out of bobbin, so you do have a previous line of stitching. I will leave at least an inch of a tail on that previous line of stitching so I can pull up that bobbin thread and hold it as I'm taking because that's what pushes. You take your new tacking stitches to start your new line of thread, and you've got a loose existing line of stitches, and they just kind of make a little bubble. Right. So I always really snug up and hold all my threads really tight together, especially the original bobbin, before as I make my tacking stitches on top of it. So I'm sure and Jody, you disguise it with small quilting, then you go back over it, right?
Yeah, so I just try to pick a place, where I know I'll go over it, and that's where I tie off. And another thing I've been doing too, when you're doing a block, let's say, and we do whatever, and then we're going to go back and put pebbles or the fill, right? Why is it that no matter what, you always go to the edge of the block? You know what I mean? So if I was pebbling through here, I go here, down here, and then I go somewhere to the seam. I went in the ditch is what it is, right? But then I started to think about it. Well, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? So now when I'm doing a tight fill, I end out in the middle of it somewhere. Like if I was pebbling an area this big, I'm going to stop it right in the middle or anywhere, but not the edge.
Not the edge.
Because you look for the edge, right? That's where you would start and stop. But pebbles, especially because you're going over them 2 and 3 times. No one's finding that.
That's a good idea.
Even your long arm friends aren't going to find it because they're usually the ones that would notice.
Now we're going to look harder. No.
Yeah, we will.
Oh. Are we spinning again? Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, we'll spin again.
All right. Oh, we only get one more spin because then we'll know what the other one is.
It should just flop back and forth. Household item.
And then, of course,
All right.
marking is next.
Marking is next. All right, this is an interesting topic, I think. Household items that you would use in your quilting room. And I have used, obviously, there's obvious ones, right? You use in Tupperware lids or whatever, but also I have used press and seal paper because I cut out, I wanted to have stars across a quilt and I wanted them to be different sizes. But I didn't want to have to cut out a lot of them and I didn't want to have to mark the quilt because I was concerned about the marking on that particular quilt. So I cut out a variety of stars of press and seal, and then I laid them on my quilt top, which actually it kind of sticks to your quilt top because it's press and sealed, and I stitched around them, and then I could peel them up and move them to the next pass. And it worked really great.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any?
Well, I have long time ago. I've used cookie cutters for, because I wanted a specific shape. I just, on that particular quilt, I remember marking it, but you easily could have transferred that to whatever press and seal or freezer paper, for the same, that was smart what you did, Jeannie. Even though I've worked with press and seal, and I don't know how you manage to actually trace and cut out stars, because it's like, it tries to cling to everything. So, but yeah, I've used cookie cutters at some point.
I don't know if it's like household, but like, because it's quilt hold now. It's taken from the house and it's now quilt hold. Because like I use my 45-degree laser lights, which are a tool, but they don't live in the garage anymore. They live in the quilt studio. So I use them for anytime I need to see my lines, whether it's blocking or cutting or whatever. Yeah. So.
It's a good one.
Okay, mine's gonna be really silly. And this happened years ago, and I have a carpeted sewing room, and so I always get threads on the bottom, and it would foul up the vacuum cleaner, because the threads get wrapped around the beater bar. So I will preface this by saying it should be new and never have been used for its intended purpose. But a toilet bowl brush, if you go across the carpet with it, it'll pick up all the threads. But it really should be new.
Yeah. That becomes quilt hold too, not household. That's
multi-purpose.
Well, how did you think of that, Karen? How did you think
it
of
was
that?
actually the girlfriend came over and had told me she came over and gave me one, and she said that's what you use to pick up the threads on your carpet. And I would just have always done it since then. So I always have a toilet thing hanging in a basket on my wall.
I would probably have to say my little scrubby thing, little mitt or whatever that's meant to dry a car to get chalk off. It works good.
That does work good.
Well, I use the mitt. If you go to the pet aisle in the grocery store, you can find a whole, you get the lint remover where you have to
the red
direction. Yeah, it's red and it's one direction on one side and the other. But you can get like a thing where you can put your whole hand inside. So for like removing pet hair from your furniture and your clothes and stuff. And I use that on the quilts because you get these little threads that are on there, and then you wonder which ones are actually attached. Some of them are still actually attached in there to the seam, right? So you can't just pull those out. They have to be clipped at the surface. So I just do a quick pass over with that mitt, and then I know which ones, okay, now I have to clip that, I have to clip that, and everything else just comes up. It's way faster than the little, yeah.
That equally works well if you actually have quilts covered in pet hair, Sharon.
Yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
Like, oh my gosh.
100%.
Okay, I think we have just one more topic, which was marking tools. Yes. or marking, our favorite method of marking or favorite marking tools. I actually don't love to mark because I'm very concerned about marks coming out. So usually I'm using the piecing of a quilt, or if I have to make little marks, I try to use chalk because it seems like chalk is the best thing that comes out the easiest.
Mhm. Well, you've all heard my favorite already, but it's the expanding sewing gauge, zero math marking.
I love all marking things, but probably school chalk the best because it's
Yeah.
just easy, inexpensive.
My favorite marking tool is one that takes the marks out. If you use a water soluble pen, I go to the hobby store, and in the paint section, you can buy a little brush with the nylon brushes on the end, and it's got a little water reservoir, and you just take screw the top off, fill it with water, because oftentimes I've marked incorrectly and realized that I've made my marks in the wrong spot. And then if you like spray that whole area, now you have to wait till it's dry until you can remark it again and quilt it. So with that brush, you can just isolate and just dot in exactly where you want that mark to be gone, and everything else stays nice and dry. And then you don't have as much worry about, like, if you had a red fabric beside the white that you're trying to get the mark off of, and then spraying and dousing that whole area and having fabric color bleeding and stuff. So really precise. I like that one.
My favorite marking, since I do mostly whole cloth quilts, obviously I have to mark them because you wouldn't, you have to have a road map when you're doing a whole cloth. So my favorite marking tool is a water dissolvable pen. I think it's wise to always pre-test it on your fabric to make sure that it's going to come out. But there's another, I love the idea you have, Sharon. There's another product out there called Blue Line Eraser. And that works really well if somebody has accidentally heat set the blue marker.
Oh yeah.
That will take that out, which is really good. But because I do all the marking, I have to wash all my quilts when they're done, and then I block them and bind them and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
love marking. I think there's no shame in marking. It keeps me going in the right direction.
Yeah, it might be worth mentioning too, like, of the markers that I've used, I try to choose a fine tip instead of a big bulky
Yeah.
tip, because I think people like if you put that bulky tip, it's like a big felt tip down on your fabric, it doesn't just get the top of the fabric, it can saturate the batting and all the way through the backing too. So the marks keep coming back after you take them away, then it can be because, hey, it's all the way through all those layers. So just only as much as you need to be able to see where you're going next.
Well, I agree with you on that point. And another reason I agree with you on it is when you use a thicker, like the felt one, you're getting a line that's almost a quarter of an inch, or
Right.
1/16 of an inch.
Yeah.
So it really does not mimic a thread line.
Yeah.
So you're going to find that, like, if you're marking cross hatching or something like that, it's going to be off because the marking lines are too thick.
You're going to lose precision.
Right.
Well, it's important to mention too, we get asked, when we teach on the tour a lot about marking tools, and people want to know specific brands, and I generally tell them, I'm not brand specific whatsoever, especially with chalk markers. It all depends what I'm doing. So they have different width, different thicknesses, and the same goes for all the other marking tools too, because there's some water erasable that are gel pens, and that pen is much finer than the ones you were talking about. So the point is, we can't be specific because it all depends on the purpose that you're going to be using it for. So if you can, it's best, depending on what you'd like to do with it, to have a variety of the same types of marking tools.
Just collect all the things.
Well, and you do.
You'll find
That's
your
why we had
favorite.
storage tips
I would
too.
say that's why we
That's
need more and
right.
more storage.
Right?
Okay, so that was that. Thank you for joining us for the latest thread.
Later.
Hi.
Bye.